Hypatia, hello, and I'm finally going to do what I've been stupidly promising for too long now, and return to where we started, which was Caves of God. I'm glad you liked Patrick Barlow, because I really like him, and next time either you or I seriously need cheering up, we'll go back to him, and we can go back to any one of the 6 other deviations that I have inserted into this readings without any complaint from you. God bless you, thank you very much. But I've had some sleep, and I'm now going to try to resume things as they were. Except that I can't properly remember how far we had got with Caves of God. I think we had done a chapter called The Land, which had, in my edition, some wonderful photographs with it. I hope they're the same in however you may be following the text. It is a glorious black and white photographs. Anyway, this kind of ties in with what fake Professor Barlow was telling us yesterday, in that the next chapter I have in my edition, which is on page... oh God, no page numbers again. Page 18, is called The Architecture. And if we have done this before, I am very sorry, but it might be useful just to remind myself of how far we had got with this book, and to try to return to its rhythm and its themes. So, yawny. Okay, Caves of God, page 19 of my edition, and The Architecture. Not the least incentive to legend making is the knowledge that the cones and pleats of stone have, from an early time, been used for shelter, burial, and sanctuary. The tuff is easy to carve. As water and wind freed the larger shapes from sheets as thick as 4,500 feet in places, so that human hands burrowed in for small protective hollows to serve as homes for the living and the dead, and to ensconce divinity. The practice of scooping out an environment from natural features is a primeval one. At its simplest, advantage is taken of hollows in the earth, like natural caves. But often too, and even in the most advanced of cultures, rural folk communities will make these hollows by cutting into natural matter usable shapes, mostly hidden from view, which are the exact opposite of much architecture as we have come to know it. They stress not constructed form, built up in defiance of the law of gravity, but rather form that is dug, i.e. created with interior space as the main objective. Columns and vaults, when they exist, are no more than structural symbols, liberated from natural matter in the same way a sculptor liberates the human form from a slab of limestone or marble. To speak of the columns as holding up entabulatures, or of the vaults as resting on walls, is only to demonstrate the tenacity of the traditional view of architecture which centres on burdens and supports. Instances of this sculptured architecture, so to call it, are numerous, and the practice of making it universal. Written sources record excavated environments that we have lost. Agatharchides, a Greek geographer of the 3rd century BC, spoke of the rock dwellers of the Red Sea, Herodotus of Ethiopia, and Xenophon of Armenia. In the vision of Obadiah, the Lord admonishes the land of Edom. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. Obadiah chapter 3, I guess. And the Quran, in one of its mentions of the wicked city of Thamud, refers to its people as those who hewed out their dwellings among rocks of the valley. But we have, of course, actual remains. Rock tombs abound in the Near East. Those of Petra in the south of Jordan are famous. In Sicily, whole towns are rock-cut. Siculiano, Caltabellotta, Raffadalle, Bronte Maletto. Further afield, in the Loess, Loess, that's a type of rock, I think, in the Loess belt of China, a large area comprising the Honan, Shanxi, and Hanzhou provinces, about 10 million people live in dwellings hollowed out of the silt that has been transported and piled up by the wind. The rock churches of Ethiopia, most notably those at Lalibela, were the subject of very recent books. When this anonymous architecture had its start in Cappadocia is hard to say. Of the thousands of burrowed spaces in the pliant tuff that have survived, few seem to antedate Christianity, and mature Christianity too. But there is no reason to disbelieve that the practice was more ancient. From the 7th century onward, however, we have countless hermitages, monasteries, and independent chapels to prove that the land had become by then as holy as Mount Sinai, or the desert of Sohag, Sohag, which I have no idea what that is, and one of the most concentrated regions of Eastern monasticism. There were also villages here, and towns whose people chose to live apart from the small valleys and riversides, in dim caverns carved in the native rock. This arrangement made architectural sense in the absence of wood, and it had the advantage over constructed housing of being cool in the summer and relatively sheltered when the formidable Anatolian winter came around. Wood was only used for doors, and on occasion as flooring between the superposed rooms. Professor Barlow will be disappointed to learn that they did have doors. 2 such towns are specifically mentioned in the first written record that we possess on the rock-cut architecture of Cappadocia. They are Korama, Korama, and Matianoi, Matianoi. The predecessors, in fact, of the present rock towns of Gurima and Machan, in a region where many of the churches we will be reviewing are to be found. towns are referred to in the Acts of St. Hieron, a document which in its existing form dates from about AD 600. But the actual martyrdom of this local saint took place during the Diocletianic persecutions at the end of the 3rd century AD. The existence of the two towns in the tough landscape could therefore probably be postulated for this early date. Hieron was a native of Matianoi. He was arrested by Roman soldiers together with 18 others, as he worked in the vineyards that comprised his regular occupation. He managed to escape from their hands, and after a pursuit through fields in which he hid for a time, in a mighty cavern in the flank of a hill, which had been carved out of the rock with great skill. This account has topical credibility even today. The name of still a third town in the region, Hagios Prokopios, or present-day Ürgüp, is referred to in relation of the Council of Chalcedon in 451. Among those attending was a certain Elpidius, with the title of Memorophylax of Procopiu, and a contingent of other monks. A parenthetical reference in Leo the Deacon's narrative of the years 959 to 975 shows how general excavated dwellings had become by the 10th century. The people of Cappadocia were once called troglodytes, Leo wrote, on account of their inhabiting caves, holes, and labyrinths. The anonymous writer of the Synopsis Chronike in the 13th century commented more informatively that troglodytic dwellings were favoured as protection against the winter and the snows. He might also have said protection against man, for Cappadocia never remained safe from raids for long, and, at least in the case of monasteries, and probably also for villages and towns too, troglodytic architecture was conceived of as shelter in more than an environmental sense. The houses often had one entrance only, high above ground level, and access to it was had by a removable ladder. Ah. Professor Barlow was right, Blumenegg. If rock-cut stairs were available, they would be steep, narrow, and unobtrusive. In monastic compounds... Excuse me, I've lost my place, I'm sorry. In monastic compounds. Clearly vulnerable to non-Christian invaders, precautions are even more obvious. On the walls, grooves in the form of a right angle to hold large beams in place across the closed doors are still in evidence. Passages leading to stairs were often provided with piers to block the way. Behind these rooms were ingeniously carved out on several levels. Behind these the rooms were ingeniously carved out on several levels and had labyrinthine interconnections. To reach them, one had to slither up or down narrow shafts, or crawl across barely negotiable tunnels. Common, too, was the practice of situating the entrance hole not at the face of the rock overlooking the pathway, but further further up, God, further up beyond sight of the passers. In this case, having gained the hole by means of a rope ladder, you would have to drop down through a chute. Oh my word. Now, I had a horrible feeling halfway through that we had done this before. And if we have, I'm sorry. Anyway, it did me good to read it again, but I hope it wasn't repetitious for you. So I can't stop giggling. And the illustrations are once again marvellous. He seems to have developed a rather more difficult style of writing now. Very complex sentences, and I hope I didn't make too much of a mess of them. And just so that you remember, even if I don't, we are now on page 23. And I love the idea of the Zataloyukians dropping in to see their friends through a chute. I think that's something we should revive. Come and see me, but you'll have to climb a ladder and fall 5 meters. Right, I am going to stop now, and I have been sleeping a bit better. You don't care, I know you don't. Right, I'm going to try again. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.